Good day, everyone. I'm Ouspenskaya, and I'll be your host today for the program. Sound Espressivo is a new generation of classical music competition, which offers contestants to perform in live broadcasts from their own location anywhere in the world. We turn people's own locations, their living rooms, their studios, to the concert halls. Sound Espressivo panel of judges represents top performing artists and music educators from around the globe. Sound Espressivo offers an unprecedented array of awards for winning musicians. Welcome to our live podcast. Meet the judges, music promoters, music managers, and educators.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressivo Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.
For our today's presentation, we invited a guest who has been working in the realm of online learning for musicians for quite a while. And we hope that his insights and his expertise will be helpful to teachers and music students alike. iClassical Academy offers an online, fully rounded education curriculum, which is a tremendous source of vetted and proven knowledge. The courses are both academic and practical for musicians and for students and for amateurs and music lovers. The courses are built in close collaboration with some of the most respected and leading professionals in the field. Recently, the company opened their collection of courses as a whole curriculum where people can access all of what iClassical accumulated over the years. Pretty much like what a conservatory or a university offers to enrolled students. iClassical Academy is a big supporter of Sound Espressivo competition. The company is sponsoring prizes for winning contestants, which are designed specifically to help musicians be better equipped with modern tools and knowledge for progressing towards their goals as students and professional musicians. We invited Sandra Sittig, a renowned pianist who will be joining us from Amsterdam, who teaches chamber music and piano accompaniment at the Rotterdam Conservatory. Welcome, Sandra. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. Good to be in your company tonight.
It's wonderful that you were able to arrange to get online on our platform all the way from Amsterdam. And I'm, by the way, streaming today from Vienna, Virginia, a suburb of Washington, D.C. Sandra, you're an established performer. You collaborated with some of the most renowned and influential artists of our time. You're also a music and musicians advocate, as you demonstrated through your participation in the project Violins of Hope, which brings attention once again to the horrors of the Holocaust, where musicians suffered just like everybody else, through film, beautiful concerts worldwide, and restoration of the instruments recovered from the time of 1940s. Those instruments are connected to the history of the Holocaust. You're also among most forward-looking musicians and educators who embraced online learning early on when a lot of us didn't even hear anything about it. It's pretty remarkable and very, very currently important knowledge which you have accumulated over the years working with online platforms. Today's situation is, of course, is no comparison to the Holocaust, but it's nonetheless a devastating circumstance for performing arts, the artists, education, students, and teachers, everyone involved. What is your professional and personal response? How do you handle the changes in your everyday professional activities?
I completely agree. It's a devastating time for most of us, but I'm trying to make the best of it for myself, at least, by revising a lot of the repertoire that I did. I discovered there's so much music that I was more or less playing on the automatic pilot, um, and I happened to come across a book by Peter Feuchtwanger, a very influential, very, let's say, stand-alone teacher who very out of the mainstream way of piano teaching. And the fingering system he offers has really influenced me. I found his fingerings really are improving my playing almost instantly. And I took the time to revise a repertoire that I would otherwise perform almost without practicing. Uh, and I found that it's easy to change 60 or 70 or 80 fingers in one single movement of that. So I needed time to find out what I had to change and to really implement these changes. So in that sense, I've done, I've tried to make this time useful for myself.
That's a very interesting comment. We all put off lots of research and more in-depth analysis of the music or technical aspects of it in our busy life, going from one concert to another, from one performance or engagement to another, and many of us are now forced not to be able to do that, and that's a very hopeful advice. Let's focus on what we always wanted to do but never had time or attention to do that. It's going to make us better musicians.
It certainly will. I should add that I didn't only concentrate me on these fingerings. I also tried to get some more quiet time to discover other performances, other interpretations, listen to musicians, and as a result, I actually changed quite many things in my approach to piano playing and music.
Very interesting. The Sound Espressivo competition is also focused on asking and promoting and prompting musicians to look deeper inside for their own unique personality, artistic personality. Seems like this is a trend of the day. Let's look deeper inside and find and refine who we are as artists. Thank you for that comment. I have another question. Well, I prepared so many questions. We probably are not going to be able to go through all of them. There's just so many things I want to ask you, and I really cherish this opportunity.
I'll
Sandra,
gladly come back to answer whatever questions
that's a
may,
promise.
may
It's on the
feel.
record. It is. You're
Okay, no
on the record.
escaping.
You said that. No escaping. But you also created a comprehensive course, the detailed teachings, which you recorded, and they for our Classical Academy as a course, and we'll see some samples of that later on today in the program. But recording the teachings in a teaching specifics in a specific student can be regarded by some as uniquely focused on a particular student's challenges and needs. And therefore, some people may argue that it's not possible or very challenging to replicate an online environment. To replicate the in-person teaching through this online recorded course environment and make it useful to other students, or to make it supplemental or substitute for in-person learning. There's a lot of arguments in the community of musicians and teachers, and many people challenge the online approach as no match and simply not capable of delivering the quality of the education as the in-person education. How do you respond to questions like that?
I think that's a very legitimate criticism, but it doesn't even apply only to online teaching. It is also in person-to-person teaching that we, I think, have to completely immerse ourselves in the needs of the student being taught at that particular moment in this phase of its development. And it reminds me of one rehearsal I had with a trio that I was playing with at the time. And we had attended several master classes in several academies and had some very enlightening, influential lessons with Menachem Pressler. And then maybe 5 years later, we were preparing for a concert, one of the pieces that we studied with him. And I just made some not very significant remark about one detail in the score. And then the answer of the cellist was, but Menachem said, and I was thinking, okay, he said that 5 years ago. The way we played then, the way he felt then about maybe one accident that happened then. Of course, I don't want to take any teacher's remarks as universally valid for centuries. They reflect that very incident, and it should always be treated like that, no matter if this is online or in reality.
But on the other hand, creating the courses which are pre-recorded tackles with that problem. How do you make the course useful to students other than the one being taught in the course?
I try, at least as far as I can, to include in the lessons as many of the principles of music making and piano playing that I know. Of course, I'm not sure if I'm completely successful, but that was at the back of my mind all the time. And you cannot fulfill this for 100%,
of course,
since not every student will prompt you to say exactly the things you had in mind. But at least that was my thought, my wish, my striving to include as many of these, let's say, the 10 commandments of piano playing as I see them.
So there are universal fundamentals of music making and specifically piano playing, which do you believe they apply to music making regardless of whether the person is physically present in your classroom at the moment, and regardless of which piano school they come from or which part of the world they live in or in the culture? Do you believe there are some bridges which are encompassing all of those specific unique elements?
I do. Well, on a very elementary level, I can just say presto needs to be faster than allegro. That's kind of a rule of thumb. You cannot escape that. And forte needs to be louder than mezzo forte. Of course, if you arrive at this forte through more weight in the arm or more power from the finger or more pedal or whatever means, that's individual. And I'm trying to at least give my principles, but I'm not claiming they are universally valid. I would definitely, I would never object to someone arriving at the same effect through other means.
Yeah, of course, there are more than a dozen means to arrive at an effect, and there's just so many nuanced details in there, including balancing forte and mezzo forte, using your example. Those are relative, of course, values, cannot be measured with some absolute instrument. And that's very interesting. Let's maybe observe a few samples of the course, and if you wouldn't mind giving us some comments after this first sample.
Okay.
Thank you.
Beethoven is, I would say, equivalent to short phrase, long phrase. And I think you should make that very clear. Short phrase, other short phrase, which in the end is a variation of the first. Long phrase. Second phrase, same.
Okay.
There is something which is wrong in the bar. You give accent on that bar on the second beat.
Okay.
We need to hear 1, 2, 3. It goes away from the E. I'm sorry. The F sharp can by no means be louder than the E before.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
Here, make sure we hear the right hand above the left hand. In the passage before, although this was better than before, you make a little bit too many stops.
Okay.
The most important thing to remember is keeping the line going until the end, in spite of the fact that this is a slow melody full of turns that no one can understand. But we have to follow the line through all the time. Let's do one more time from Adagio. Maybe more difference between arpeggio and main note. And then don't stop before the sextuplets begin, because this way you suggest that there are two separate things, like a melody and a cadenza. They're not. The sextuplets are the sequel, are the result, are the consequence of the 16ths before, 30 seconds. Go too forte. And there is no difference in touch. It stays basically non-legato or quasi-legato. So
Okay.
don't suddenly go into... That doesn't help you, and that just distracts from the general atmosphere. Go again from the top of this page. I can see that you don't feel them together, because you really lift the hand and start again before the sextuplet begins. You have to really feel as one phrase without any interruption.
Okay.
In the first place, we don't need a pedal on. It makes the note louder, which is not wanted, and it makes the note sounding, which is not wanted because there's a rest, and it makes the note more important, which is also not the case. So no pedal on that one at all. And make more one line, so save some of your energy. Not, because then you can have no crescendo anymore.
That is such a great analysis, and what I appreciate very much about your teaching in general, and this little snippet we were able to see, is the adherence to the language of the composer. really looking at what in the score and then bringing it out with a great planning of the dynamics.
Hmm. Thank you. I appreciate your comment. I'm very sorry for this poor guy who had to endure all my remarks. My God, the lesson lasted hours and hours. Uh, I can't even think of music being considered otherwise. It is a language, and I've been very lucky to have had teachers who were kind of taking that at the base of their teaching. And fortunately, I've been performing with other musicians who also see music that way. So it is more or less common to me as a second language, or maybe as a first language actually.
Yeah, it's not an easy language to learn. And, the planning of the phrasing, like where you're talking about dynamic and pedal, and really shaping the phrase with a strategically. And that last note where the accent is not needed, it's the ending of the phrase. This is really where we can see that a recorded masterclass can give such a wealth of information, because this is not just for this Beethoven sonata, and it's for all Beethoven sonatas. You got to blend the dynamics and phrasing in there, and it's not just for Beethoven sonatas. It's for
Right.
it's a very basic
This is what I
skill.
was saying, like the Ten Commandments. This applies to whatever you're playing, even though, of course, the scale of the dynamics and the purpose of the dynamics, of course, is greatly different between Handel and Berio, but still they need to be approached the same way.
Yeah, and a lot of times we also call it basic skills, basic understanding, but basic usually has this connotation of being something simple and easy to learn. But throughout my own personal career, I found that those basics are probably the hardest to learn and apply.
Of course, to be consequent and to really never forget, or let's say to what I find is the hardest, probably, I don't know if you agree, Anna, but I find the hardest to prioritize because, okay, above all, there's general expression. Then comes probably big line and sustaining the whole piece. And then in third place, there's kind of how exactly you want all signs to be interpreted. And sometimes they interfere. There can be the clash. You want a certain effect, you want a certain dynamic, or you want something which in the end may disturb the big line or may disturb the general character. And these are the big dilemmas that you're facing all the time.
I agree with that. Totally. Let's see the continuation of that concept in the next sample, and we'll hear some more comments after.
Good.
We have arrived at a higher emotional level, so continue in this
Okay.
level. Yes, I think you can arrive at a higher level of intensity. Doesn't it say something like l'istesso tempo molto espressivo? Is that right?
Yes.
Exactly. So
Stesso tempo.
then play it molto espressivo. Already when the third phrase starts, every note and carry this expression. When he turns to the minor, you can diminish, but not before.
Yeah, molto espressivo. Is that a challenging comment?
It's kind of metaphysical. How would one play moto espressivo? I don't actually know. I cannot tell you to, if you need moto espressivo, move your thumb 1 millimeter to the left. That doesn't help you. It's a concept. It's not real.
Yeah, it's a concept, and of course, it needs to be both demonstrated through technique and felt inside. So those two need to merge and be able to be present in in the performance together in concert. So how do you feel your message in this teaching reaches the audience, the students who are watching it? How do you feel it reaches them if it's not in your classroom?
I would hope they will watch these lessons with the same intensity and the same seriousness as physical lessons. Of course, you can never be assured of that, but if they know the piece, if they have practiced or at least read the score and compared several interpretations and received teaching high level, maybe even without teaching, arrive at a high level, they hopefully would try and feel inspired by what I'm saying, and I don't want them to slavishly imitate me. I think they can find their own ways. Like in this passage where I suggest he carries the line on to clarify the espressivo marking. If someone finds an excellent way, an internal reasoning to break the line, to make it even more expressive, I will be applauding him, definitely. There's no single way of teaching or playing, but there is one way of understanding that this passage wants molto espressivo, not only because Beethoven writes it, because it's already implicit in the music.
Exactly. So that is the balance between fundamental principles of approaching the music language and performance and the individual momentary interpretation of that. And it's pretty incredible to observe in those classes how you're teaching both. You're speaking from the experience of, which can be generalized and applied in many different ways. At the same time, you're showing examples of how it is done with this individual student in this moment, and giving an example how it realizes itself in the change of the playing of that student.
But I'm pretty sure if he performed this for me today, I would say different things and show him differently. He developed during these years, I probably, hopefully developed, and probably both our understandings of the piece developed. So other things would happen today, but nevertheless the general idea of clarifying the meaning of the composer can never change.
Absolutely. Let's see our next example, and we'll come back with a few comments after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now entirely without accent, not.
Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't help you to play because you change the atmosphere at a place where the atmosphere should not yet be changed, and the change that is prepared in this way is not a change anymore. That is a sequel.
Okay.
So this variation are two separated worlds that exist next to each other.
Okay.
So go from the one into the other without preparation. But please try to then really play it in tempo.
This is again so much. I'm feeling enriched by just watching the snippets of this, about the tempo,
Thank you.
about changing the atmosphere where the score has not indicated any change. This is really so wonderful to get this knowledge refreshed, even for me as a professional.
I can't even tell you where I got this idea from. It kind of gradually developed, and maybe I didn't even think of this before the lesson. I don't think I ever did. But when he played this for me, I realized that he weakened the effect of the two different worlds by entering gradually from the first into the second. And it turns out to be, I was thinking, I was thinking I was completely right to tell him that.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. Beethoven is so much about the contrasting different planes of texture and different planes of dynamics, and it's very much about the contrast. And contrast doesn't always have to be a booming chord after a very quiet section. It can be the articulation. It can be more subtle, but still
The more subtle, the better.
the subtle difference, but it still has the edge. It has the moment where things change, not so much transition in gradually into one another. This is really so important. And again, this is more general interpretation of the style of the composer, which is signature to the Beethoven, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I think, one thing where experienced performers can help, because at this point of time, when I taught him, I probably performed maybe, well, practiced, I studied 12 or 15 Beethoven sonatas, plus lots of trios and cello sonatas, violin sonatas, concertos. I had this kind of bigger knowledge of Beethoven than he did. Obviously, he might have done a few sonatas, but not as many as I did. So in that sense, I felt I could really help him by sharing my discoveries.
Absolutely. Let's see another little example, and again, we'll come back with a few comments.
Yes, fine. Of course, this is a difficult passage, and you would think probably most of the right hand, but that means that you neglect to give the left hand this ecstasy as well. Don't play it too equally. Play it like there is really a shape to every phrase in that sequence.
Okay.
The note before this starts, at the end of the left hand trill, you really have to resolve the passage. You kind of skipped that one.
Okay.
Yes, well, now you took more time. That was already much better, but it still disappears in the sound. So we need to hear from both hands. And let me give you one more advice. That is very important as a kind of high point of the exercise. I think we don't reach a higher level than this, and it's a very dissonant chord. So take your time. Both, I would say, place it later and play it more ecstatically. That's the only way I can describe it. If you do it longer, I do, but if you don't, it's fine with me. But it has to give me the impression of reaching the nirvana.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I just love your teaching.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, this is just in such a short terms, you describe this challenging passage and how to approach it to turn it from grinding rocks, which many passages easily can turn into, from turning away from just the technical aspect of it and bringing out the actual meaning of the passage based on the harmonic content of it, where you reach the high point of it and you give a reason. That's what I love very much about the way you approach teaching in general and recording this course, to give the students the reasoning behind why you suggest this or other approach. And here it was just so clear. This is a dissonant chord. This is your high point of the phrase, the most dramatic point.
Absolutely. I would feel that if I ask the student something without rationing, I would have failed. Then I would just command, and he does. But what's the point of that? I need to make them understand what is in the score and what is their task as performers, and then, of course, they can apply this among many other passages and many other pieces that they're going to learn. Otherwise, they still wouldn't understand. If I just said, wait for the C sharp, play the E natural louder, then they ask why. What's the point?
Yeah, and if they don't ask, that's even worse. It's better if they do ask.
Most of them, they don't even ask.
Yeah, and it's just so invaluable because you're giving this general 10 commandments or 100 commandments of the music language, yeah. Which can be really applied to other things. Yes, it's how the passage is designed. It reaches the top point at the most dramatic moment in the phrase, and it's supported by the most dissonant chord. Obviously, you have to find tools to express it as a performer, and that is the general knowledge and understanding, which doesn't necessarily apply only to the student, to all students who will be watching your courses.
I guess it applies to everyone, to anyone. But this is the strong point, of course, of teaching, that you can share with others, and that you can, as a student, that you can see at any time, in any point of time, that you can come back and revise what you have been taught and watch critically to what you have been taught, and maybe change things that the teacher told you, but at least do it with a reason, do it from a strong conviction that you are doing the right thing, not just because you want to change something, but find a reason why you want to change it, why it's necessary for you to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're among pioneers of us who were able to channel your previous teaching experience into this recording an online course, which will help students other than the student in the course. Today we are faced with yet another challenging perspective or potential, which is one of the critical aspects of music activity for professional musicians in the current situation. And it's, of course, performing live through internet and virtual platforms. Sound Espressivo competition relies on a virtual stage, which is provided to us by virtual concert halls. Virtual Concert Halls is a new model broadcasting company which supports live music performances and programs with a cutting-edge broadcasting technology and television production systems. I just said very complicated words, but they really mean a tech support for musicians to step on stage and be able to perform live and sound and look in a way which represents their artistry, which a lot of video calls do not. It is a company which was created by professional musicians in collaboration with professionals from other fields, technology industry and the television industry. Virtual concert halls provides its services to some of the most renowned performing artists around the world, Grammy and Emmy Award winners, members of top orchestras and opera companies, faculty members of some of the most well-known conservatories like Juilliard, Moscow, Colburn, Cologne, and many others have stepped on the stage and performed live in the programs. Sound Espressivo competition opens the stage of the future to musicians and students regardless of their location or whether or not they're connected to big name institutions. So we would like to show you the beginnings of the platform we are using today. So, internet music streaming, broadcasting, and online education are all not new. But many musicians, of course, are questioning its value and its potential. What is your view on live performing and virtual platforms and all of that stuff?
Wow, that's a challenging question. I must.
I didn't
say
invite
I
you
have-
here for easy questions.
Well, if it doesn't get any more difficult than this, I will still be able to answer. I think this is. I have two takes on this actually. In the first place, I find it amazing that anyone living at any place in the world and handicapped by whatever a pandemic or whatever could happen in the world can still enjoy music, be in touch with great music played by great musicians, learn from each other, learn from professors. That's absolutely one of the marvels of this modern world, and I'm very happy that this is possible in this world. On the other hand, I want to stress that nothing, in my view, can really equal the presence of musicians in an audience in the same space, and that musicians really perform to the audience, not to a camera, and the audience feels the vibration of the music and the musicians. So let me summarize: nothing beats live music, but online music is a fantastic silver medal winner. It's great it exists.
Thank you. Of course, we are all very grateful to the tools which we have at hand to be able to connect. And I find it fascinating that we're able to connect across the oceans without me or you having to spend thousands on tickets and taking off time from our everyday duties and, having to come together this way is different for me, but very encouraging that this exists and we can enjoy it and we can use it for the greater good of music and education.
I'm very grateful you're enabling this. It's a wonderful occasion. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we finish the program, I would like to ask, if you don't mind, to share a message you would like to share with contestants of Sound Espressivo competition, which is the first competition where we're inviting people to step on the virtual stage and perform in those strange new conditions.
let me address the ones that are not winning the competition. The winners will go somewhere and have a hopefully great career and be happy and make people happy. But I want to say to the ones who are not winning, you also will have this opportunity. You will make music and you will make people happy through your music, and by doing that, make yourself happy. Your development might come later. Mine did. I won some prizes, but not major competitions. But somehow I was so lucky to be encouraged by musicians around me, and I kept on learning, I kept on improving, and I think maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years after that competition age limit, I found myself to be a much better, much more secure, much more universal musician than ever before. In spite of not making big careers through competitions, I did very many things that were gratifying to both myself and hopefully my audience throughout life.
Thank you so much. This is just such a hopeful message to everyone, and I hope people will take it to heart.
I wish it had been given to me at that time. No one told me
Yes,
that.
yes, and this is incredible. Guests of our program often share things they wish were given to them, and that's, I believe, the greatest legacy of these programs. Musicians who made it big in our field and profession. Looking back, we all know what would have helped us, and that's how we're helping the next generation. And I'm so grateful to you for sharing this message. It is a very important one and very empowering one. Thank you for being on our program. It's a great honor, and I'm reminding you that you gave us a promise to come back and perform live on this program.
Will do.
Thank you so much again for sharing your time and your wisdom with our listeners and with me. My personal thanks to you. And with that, I would like to thank our viewers and all supporters of Sound Espressivo competition. And my special thanks go to people you can't see on the screen, but with whom these programs would not be possible. Musicians who added additional skills to their already long and big ranging skills of being internet streaming producers, and they're behind the scene operating this platform for us and making it a window into bigger world for many, many musicians. Thank you all, and see you again later. Bye.